Hi, here we go. Another controversial topic to talk about today is DPS Doomfist unhealthy compared to tank Doomfist. Let's get started with the video. So obviously with the return of Overwatch Classic and the inclusion of the Moth meta, nobody gives a shit. We only care about the DPS Doom. Seriously, everybody queuing into that game mode are insta-locking DPS Doom. I've barely gone to play 2 games with them. That's why you'll see like very little DPS Doom footage from the current build, and the rest of them are probably tank Doom. But honestly, I've played DPS Doom for so long. I know how he feels. They bug fixed him to feel a little bit similar to the way he felt back then. I still don't think that's how he felt. There's a couple of things that are missing. Get Quaked on, everybody's favorite Doom streamer, content creator. He's been covering a lot, like, as to what's wrong with Doom right now. But it's nice to see that the devs actually did try to fix not only Doom, but Mercy as well. Because Mercy wasn't playing like she played in Moth meta. They smoothened her out quite a bit. Like I said, it's just depressing that this stuff is being made on the workshop and they don't have, like, some, some build somewhere that, in their backlog that, hey, just in case if we need to reverse some changes or something like that, they have like an old build. But I digress. I know that the game's on a different engine or an upgraded engine, so there's complexities with technological shenanigans and all of that. That's not the point. But in the videos we're talking about if DPS Doom is unhealthy for the game, or if tank Doom is better. Now there's many perspectives to look at this from. I would argue that the hate that DPS Doom faced, controversial take, here we go, the hate that DPS Doom faced was insanely over-exaggerated, right? Compared to what he is now. There's tweets that I keep saying where people say that, no, you don't understand. Tank Doom is more bearable to play against than DPS Doom. And I would go against that. The hell do you mean Tank Doom is more bearable to play against? You don't even have to see this guy. Like he can interact with your tank and you will get AoE thrown off the map or stunned into a wall and then slowed or some shit like that. Like, it's so irritating to hear some people go along this route and say, no, you don't understand. Tank Doom, the character who I would argue is even more oppressive, who's even more, like, active in his gameplay loop and can do so much more because they brought Doomfist down and made him this, like, punch bot one trick, although he was a punch bot before as well, in DPS Doom era as well. His punch bot Doom is so much more stronger now that, like, anybody with half a brain cell can pick this guy up and dominate games if they know what they're doing. Seriously, he's such an incredible tank right now as well, and you'll probably see that in my tank Doom games in the background. Like, there's so many interactions where I don't have to do something to the other person. Like, as long as I have empowered punch, I just punch bot and I get max value. I punch bot and I get max value. And as opposed to DPS Doom, where DPS Doom you had to, properly cycle your cooldowns. That doesn't mean you don't cycle your cooldowns on tank Doom. Obviously, if you're using your E to engage and then follow up damage with your left clicks, you want to use your punch to get out. But why would you do that? Because your engage should almost always be an empowered punch gameplay with your E to get out, because your E does barely any damage. And compare that to DPS Doom, who had a lot more agency and a lot more playmaking potential, a lot more traversal around the map. Those you guys remember those parkour Doom parkour maps were so fun. Probably some of the most fun I had in Overwatch back in the day. We don't have that anymore. Actually, I'm kind of hoping somebody squeezes in a Doom parkour before this thing goes. So we will see. But the thing that Doomfist, DPS Doomfist had was the fact that there was more agency, more skill expression. He had a higher skill ceiling. You had to land your E. You had to, like, really line up your E properly. Do a full mathematical equation on how you're gonna land where the enemy is, then uppercut them, then finish them off, and then use your punch to get out. Like, my point is even if you did, like, all of that, at best you got one pick before you just evaporated. Like, it's sad because back in the day, Doom's playstyle was to just get one pick, die, trade, and hope that trade won your team the fight. And if you survived, great, you can keep going, but your team has to walk in. He was such a team-reliant hero. On the flip side, if you played Doomfist in a punch bot way, it was the safer way to play. Like, you could just keep looking for punch bot, delete an enemy, and then, go in, rinse and repeat. Now, that's not to say that DPS Doomfist wasn't oppressive. DPS Doomfist certainly had his periods where he became overwhelming. When you had the right team, built around you, supporting you, pushing in with you, it was hard to give that Doomfist any attention. But if I'm going to keep it real with you guys, I think a lot of that had to do with this one, like, problematic perspective and philosophy in the way Overwatch has balanced. And if you look at the way like DPS-DoomFist was so problematic back then, it was because like when he was oppressive, when he was like overwhelming in the game, there was too much power being put into his abilities rather than his shooting gameplay. Now granted, his shooting gameplay is a little bit underwhelming, but I've always seen it from this perspective that why don't we try to shift around some of the philosophies when it comes to power transfer? Why do we try, like, this is a shooter game, right? So why do we not help make the shooter part feel better, and we can use the abilities as a way to set up success? But for certain characters like 𝐒𝐈𝐈, DoomFist, you know, like there's some characters where like the balance team really wants more emphasis on the actual abilities themselves. For example, let me talk about 𝐒𝐈𝐈 because she's my favorite support to play at the moment. I really dislike the fact that 𝐒𝐈𝐈's weapon has gotten the short end of the stick, and that's because the devs believe that the pylon should be the power point. I disagree with that. The pylon should allow you to take an angle for a limited period of time, poke at the enemy, hold some space with it. After that thing runs out, it's completely reliant on resource management in 𝐒𝐈𝐈's weapon. The same philosophy could be applied to DPS or Tank Doom, where you're using your abilities to set yourself up for success, not necessarily press a few buttons and get max value. I don't like it when heroes at their skill floor get more value than when you're playing heroes at their skill ceiling. Right now, what is the skill floor? What is the skill ceiling? Skill floor is if you're doing the bare minimum of the most basic thing on the character. Skill ceiling is when you're really pushing the character to the height of the limit of the character and doing your best to get max value out of the character. Now, if we look at the state of DPS Doom, the DPS Doom that's, you know, currently in Overwatch Arcade, can we say that that DPS Doom, you know, is he unhealthy for Overwatch? I would argue that both DPS Doom and Tank Doom, despite the fact that he's legitimately in my top 3 most played, I would argue that both of these versions of the character are unhealthy for Overwatch because they've never changed how they want to approach DoomFist. One of the things that's most appreciated about DoomFist's gameplay loop was his mobility and, you know, being able to set yourself up for success. Now, I see that what I've learned is what if, and you know, nobody likes empowered punch bot DoomFist either, because you're hitting multiple people at a time. God forbid if you're playing a brawl comp against that shit and you're getting just AoE punched off the map, AoE punched 3 people into the wall, you're 1 HP, like you're also stunned for like 0.5 seconds. He comes in with the follow-up, he'll finish you off. Like there's so little that you can do. It snowballs so hard. So this is, you know, and that's because it has so much AoE power. So I was thinking like this, you know, maybe keeping DPS Doom, you know, in the DPS role, maybe it like, okay, maybe that has aged like milk. Perhaps there's a world where maybe you could still make it work, but you'd have to redistribute the power in the kit. Now, how would I take DoomFist from DPS Doom and Tank Doom and try to make the best of both worlds? What I would like to do with DoomFist in order to make him healthier is I would like to take the entire kit, like the shift, the E, and the punch from DPS Doom and give that to Tank Doom, adjust the numbers so it's a little bit weaker and every front, so DoomFist becomes more of like a different style of Wrecking Ball where he's more of a disruptor tank rather than this tank that controls space. A disruptor tank should, you know, thrive in the fact that they can control your spacing and they can isolate you, but not necessarily control the space that you have already taken from a perspective that they're like, you know, just walking in, throwing you all over the place and you don't have much agency, and you know, they also have a lot of damage. Then what you could do is you could lower some of the damage numbers. Like maybe you could give the same punch numbers from Tank Doom to the new Tank Doom, or you know, whatever version of Doom that you want to talk about, and then give him more power in his left click pellets. This way you put more emphasis on his weaponry gameplay. You can make the weaponry even smoother, you can make the spread even tighter so it's a little bit more accurate. So the idea is like you can use your uppercut, you can use your E, you can use your punch, you can do all these different things as Tank Doom to set yourself up for success, and then you can follow up with your shooting gameplay and then be rewarded for doing all of that. I think everybody fundamentally agrees that the blocking on DoomFist is the most random, most uninteresting ability in the game. It feels weird to have. It just slows your momentum. It makes you feel slow when you're playing him. It doesn't feel fun to play against because, you know, if you shoot it, you charge it up, now you're gonna die. If you don't charge it up, well, then he's probably gonna bait out a support cooldown for free because support players don't pay attention most of the time. Okay, I'm just joking. I know there's good support players out there, and I know my support players watching this video are not the type to feed into Doom's cooldowns, right? There's DPS players that feed it too. I was just poking some fun at it. Relax. It's what we do over here. Anyways, so that aside, that's how I would approach the new tank Doom. It's like I would keep Doom in tank. I think he's fine here. I think we can keep him in the tank role, but the way I would change him is I'd give him the, like I said, the DPS Doom kit, so just the abilities, right? I think we can keep Meteor Strike. I think Meteor Strike is something that was really oppressive on DPS Doom, right? Like, come on, let's be a little bit realistic. I have over 800 plus hours on DoomFist. There's no denying that DPS Doom's ultimate was at least a guaranteed 1 kill or even minimum 2 kills if you knew what you were doing with it. So I would like to see him keep the tank Meteor Strike, so it can, again, because that thing sets him up for success. Let him have the cooldowns from DPS Doom, adjust the numbers so that the abilities are a little bit weaker and the gunplay is a little bit stronger. So this way you have a more fairer Doomfist to play against, and then you can increase some of the cooldowns here and there to allow windows of where Doom can be punished. Now you might be asking, well, what is Doom's survivability? Well, it's like I just talked about. His abilities can be used in different ways, so that means that he's mobile. That is the way he should be staying alive, and then he naturally has the the passive shielding gameplay that he's building up HP for landing his abilities. So I think that would be the most healthiest and best way to take Doomfist forward. Alternatively, they would completely have to rework him. But I was really opposed to Tank Doom at first, but ever since he has come in Tank Doom, I've really grown to appreciate Tank Doom. But I just think the current kit for Tank Doom is not fun. I don't like Empowered Punch. I don't like Block. And I think people that think that Empowered Punch and Block is more healthier from Doomfist now than DPS Doomfist kit, you don't understand that the only reason you're saying that is because the numbers on DPS Doomfist kit for his shift in E and his punch was so stupid and ridiculous. If you swap the two kits around, it's going to be so much more healthier. Tank Doom can control potentially 5 people with his punch, CC you into oblivion. Like, he can do so much more, and this is my opinion on it. You're more than welcome to disagree. I think DPS Doom was much weaker, so the way I see it is you can have a best of both worlds, allow Doomfist to keep his tank Meteor Strike ultimate, and keep him in the tank role, give him his DPS Doom abilities so that the original flow of his gameplay is back, the passive shielding is fine. Try to lower the what's it called, the spread, tighten the spread on his gun gameplay so that it's a lot more consistent, and take power away from his punch bot gameplay style and put it in comboing abilities together. You can even introduce a new passive that if you lead one ability to another, then he can replicate some of the numbers from back in the day, because in this case you're actually committing your entire kit, and because we're gonna give him longer cooldowns, if he messes up any part of that combo gameplay loop, he's going to be in a position where he's going to be hard punished. So the character will not be accessible from a skill 4 perspective. Truly the best of the best are going to be able to make this character work, just like we did back in the day. That's just my opinion on how I would approach Doomfist, and my thoughts on if DPS Doom is unhealthy for the game or not. I would say that, yeah, sure, I think, it's a bit of a 50-50 thing. I can't give a proper definitive conclusion, but if I had to do something with Doom and ideally balance him, it would be in the tank role, and this is how I would do it, because I think Doom just fits in tank much better. And arguably, I would also move main to tank, but that's a video for another day. Anyways, everybody, let me know your thoughts. Do you think DPS Doom is unhealthy? Do you think Doom should stay in tank? Do you like my idea of how we would rework Doomfist? Let me know in the comments down below. With that being said, new video tomorrow as well. See you then.